Hello and welcome to this second half of unit conversions. We're going to focus on units that we use here in the United States in our everyday life, and we're going to work on converting them back and forth. All right, so this system, it's not as easy as moving a decimal. And because of that, you have that reference sheet that has all of your conversions on it. You're going to be able to use that, but not for the final. So, I wouldn't focus on the obscure ones, but I would, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. Things that probably are a little bit of prior knowledge that you knew coming into this class, but you want to make sure you really focus on. Flashcards are a great way to do this if you make flashcards for them, and such like that. So our method is going to be different because this is not as easy as moving a decimal left or right. So we're going to start and we're going to write the one that we have with the unit. Now usually, all through this semester I've been telling you, drop the unit. Don't worry about it until the end. Put the dollar sign there at the end. Put the inches there at the end, because a lot of times a unit muddles up what we're doing. However, in this one, it's important because we're going from one unit to another unit. So you see that we are going from inches to feet. Now, we want to look on that reference sheet, which I'll pull up here in a second. And when we go to that reference sheet, that we can go from feet, to inches. Okay, so now going back here, we're going to write down the one we have, and we're going to make it into a fraction. We're going to put it over 1. Because we're going to be dealing with fractions, and again, this is where I put a calculator in your hand, but until the last step where you're really plugging numbers into that calculator, you're not gonna be able to use it. You are smarter than your calculator. So we're going to write it like this, and that's how we're going to start. And then we're going to kind of just reactivating a little bit of that prior knowledge. When we were simplifying fractions, I'll come up here for a minute, and we did this. We said that 3 was really 1 times 3. 15 was really 5 times 3. When we saw something that was in the top and the bottom, we could cancel it out because 3 divided by 3 really gives us 1. The logic for that is the same. If we have a unit on top, say inches in this case, and we end up with that same unit on the bottom, we can actually cancel them out. So we know that the connection between feet and inches is 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So now deciding on how to put that in here, we're going to do exactly that. We want to focus on the fact that our inches right now are on top. So we want our inches now to be written on the bottom, because inches on top and inches on the bottom will cancel out. So I know I want inches on the bottom. I know my connection is inches and feet. So if I put inches on the bottom, I'm going to put feet on top. See, I'm allowed to use this, feet and inches, because I have the connection here, feet to inches. And then I do need to put those numbers in as well. So it said that 1 foot was equal to 12 inches. And again, I see that here and here. 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So now what I want to happen is I want to look at my units. So I don't have a unit down here with this 1. There's no unit because I just put that 1 there to create a fraction. But this inches cancels out with this inches, because inches divided by inches basically poof, it's gone. One's on top, one's on bottom. The only unit that I have left is feet, and I wanted to get to feet. So I know that I'm done. Feet matches feet. Now, this is a fraction. We're multiplying a fraction here, which goes all the way back to chapter 2, and we're going to multiply straight across the top and the bottom to get a numerator and a denominator. So 48 times 1 gets me 48. 1 times 12 gets me 12, and this is the step where the calculator comes in. So you see that we're sans calculator. We're without calculator all the way until that last step, and then we can plug in 48 divided by 12, which is 4. And I am in feet now, so it's 4 feet. All right, so let's try another one. We are looking for a connection between pints and ounces. All right, so we're going to start this one the same way. We're going to write the one we have, and we're going to put it over 1. Okay, because I want to make that a fraction. It's easier at the end if I just have all fractions because I multiply straight across the top and I multiply straight across the bottom. Now, if I want to go to ounces, we already said I have to go pint to cups to ounces. Okay, so my second one, if pints are on top here, I need to put pints on the bottom, and pints was connected to cups. So pints on the bottom, cups on top, and it was 2 cups are in every 1 pint. Now for my next one, I need to go from cups to ounces. So cups on top, cups on the bottom. Cups was connected to ounces, and I had 8 ounces for every 1 cup. So now if I look, and if you're ever questioning whether or not you're done, you just need to look at what has canceled out. So pints on top, pints on the bottom, cups on top, cups on the bottom, and the only unit you're left with is ounces, which was exactly where we wanted to end up. So you're done. Now, you multiply straight across the top, you multiply straight across the bottom. That is going to give you 32 times 2 times 8, which I don't have my calculator right in front of me, so it's 64 times 8. 32, 48, 51. So 512 on top, 1 times 1 times 1 on the bottom still gives me 1 on the bottom. 512 divided by 1 is just 512, and I am talking about ounces. All right, so now this one is relevant to your life because, there's a lot of times where minutes to seconds, seconds to minutes, that kind of thing. So I know that I can go straight from minutes to seconds because I know that there are 60 seconds. 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds, or 60 seconds in every minute. Okay, so I'm going to do the same process. 7 minutes on top, 1 on the bottom. Minutes are on top, so I'm going to put minutes on the bottom. Seconds then are connected to it because, again, this comes from that connection that you make. And it's 60 seconds for every 1 minute. Okay, if I look at my units, my minutes have canceled out with my minutes and left me as seconds. You always want to make sure you've canceled what you needed to. If you don't check that, you might not have the clear path to what you want to end up with, which in this case was seconds. And then we're going to multiply straight across the top, the bottom. 7 times 60 is 420. 1 times 1 is 1. So 7 minutes is 420 seconds. All right, miles, there's 2 conversions. There's one to feet and there's one to yards. So we can go straight from miles to yards. It's 1 mile is equal to 1760 yards. So I'm going to do that same process. 2 miles on top, 1 on the bottom, just to make it a fraction. Miles are on top, so I'm going to put miles on the bottom. Yards then connects it and goes on top. I have 1,760 on top, 1 on the bottom. My miles cancel out. I multiply straight across the top, the bottom. I get 3520 over 1. And that's yards. All right, so now asking how many hours are there in a year? Well, you have 1 year, right? That's what you have. So it might seem like they didn't give you enough information, but they're basically asking you, like, if you wanted to set it up like the 4 previous ones, 1 year equals how many hours? Okay, now we do not have a clear path from hours to years. So we need to go from hours to days, days to years, because we do have a connection. We don't have to stop at months or weeks because we do know how many days are in a year. And we're not going to get into leap year. We're not going to worry about all that. We're going to go 365. Okay? So, we're going to start with 1 year and a 1 on the bottom. Now, we're actually, sorry, I mean, this was kind of backwards, but we're going to start at years and go back to hours. So, years are on top. I'm going to put years on the bottom and days on top. And it's 365 days in 1 year. And then my next one is going to be days on the bottom, because now I need it to cancel out with my days on top, and hours. And there's 24 hours in 1 day. So if I look at all my units, the years have canceled out with the years, the days have canceled out with the days, and it's just left me with hours, which is what I wanted. How many hours? So now I'm going to take 365 times 24, because remember, all the ones are really irrelevant. And this is where you do want to use that calculator, just because you don't want the human error. And I was going to do it by hand, but I did do it by calculator. 8760. And that's hours. So there's 8,760 hours in 1 year. All right, how many pints are relevant to 320 ounces? So again, if we're setting it up like with the first 4, we have 320 ounces, which is OZ, the abbreviation, is how many pints. So it's kind of backwards to the one we did before. We want to go from ounces back to cups, cups back to pints. So we're going to start with 320 ounces, put it over 1. We're going to put the ounces on the bottom, cups on the top. And really, if you wanted to, I mean, sometimes like I just get my units taken care of. So now I'm going to have cups on the bottom, pints on top. So if you look, ounces cancel out with ounces, cups cancel out with cups, and it leaves you with pints, which is what you want. And now I have to go back and put my numbers in. There's 8 ounces in 1 cup, and there's 2 cups in 1 pint. So I end up with 320, because 320 times 1 times 1, divided by 1 times 8 times 2, which is 16, and that is 20. So 20 pints are in 320 ounces. All right, Abe Lincoln spoke of 70 years ago. If a score is 20 years. So this is a conversion that's not on that reference sheet, so they can always give it to you in the problem. They could always make one up too, like a widget is equal to 7, ding dongs. Like it really, they could they could make up whatever they wanted in terms of a conversion they want you to make, and you would just need to do the same process. So here's our first taste where there's two different things we're talking about. We're talking about scores and we're talking about years. And we see that right here because it tells us 4 score and 7 years. Remember, and means add. Not only that, they're going to throw in a third one. How many months are there in 4 score and 7 years? So first we have to figure out just how to convert it all over to years, because you want to, if you have to choose, you want to go to the smaller unit. All right, so if a score is 20 years, we want to turn that into years, because a year is just, 1 year, or 1/20th of a score. So I'm just going to worry about this part right now. So 4 scores over 1. I'm going to put score on bottom. I'm going to put years on top because they told us a score, which really means 1 score, right? So 1 score is 20 years. Scores cancel out, and I end up with 80 years. Now, added to that, I need the 7 years because it was 4 score and 7 years ago. So that's 87 years total that Abe Lincoln was talking about. However, we want months. So now 87 years, okay, over 1. I'm going to put years on the bottom and I'm going to put months on top, because I know that there's a connection between months and years, and it's that there's 12 months for every 1 year. The years cancel out, and I get 87 times 12, which is 1,044 months. So the amount of time Abe Lincoln was talking about in months was 1,044 months, or 87 years, or 4 score and 7 years prior. We want to find what we're talking about. So we might not find both of them at the same time, but that's kind of, we hope to find both of them at the same time in the same line, because if we do, that means it's going to be a one-step thing. So right here, we're going from, I think it was feet to inches. So if you look, there's a clear connection between feet and inches. All right, it tells us that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So we're going to use that to our knowledge. We know. Now, if I go to my reference sheet, pint and ounces, I want to go pint to ounces. Well, it's like a train. You can, the front of the train where like the conductor sits steering the train or doing whatever he does. The front of the train is connected to the caboose, right? The engine is connected to the caboose, but it may be indirectly. There might be other cars in between. So even though the engine is not touching the caboose, the first car is not touching the last car, they are still connected. They're still the same train, because the engine is touching the second car is touching the third, the fourth, the fifth, and then the fifth one ultimately is attached to the caboose, which means that the engine is, in fact, connected to that caboose, right? If I kind of draw my train here. And here's my caboose, here's my engine, here's my wheels. Okay. All of these cars are connected. Ultimately, this car is connected to this car. The engine is connected to the caboose. But these sometimes are very important, because if I wanted to walk from the engine to the caboose, I would have to pass through the passenger car, the dining car, the whatever car, the sightseeing car, all that stuff. Okay? So how I figure this out is I want to look for connections. So I have pints. Okay? Now, pints is related to quarts, If I follow that one up, though, quarts is related to gallons. Then I'm at a dead end because I don't have any other things. So that wasn't the way I wanted to go. And if you think about what you're talking about there, you're talking about getting bigger, right? Gallons versus pints. However, if I look at this one, 1 pint is equal to 2 cups, and 1 cup is equal to 8 fluid ounces. So essentially, if pint is my first car and ounces is my caboose, my middle car, that middle car that's touching both of them, that's connecting them, is cups, right? So I have to stop there in between. I can't just jump from pints to ounces. So I need to remember both of these. Now, when you're sitting there doing it, you should have your reference sheet right next to this, and it'll make it a lot easier on flipping back and forth. And double check that one. Yep. That one, yep, is right here. 1 pound is 16 ounces. All right. So 8 and 9 are actually the exact same thing, just without the wordiness of it. You are taking a unit, or basically a measure that has 2 units, and you're creating 1 unit out of it. So again, going to the smaller, you can see that's obvious because they want us to take it to seconds. Well, we already have a piece of that because we have the 7 seconds. We just need to turn the minutes to that and then add it to the 7. So 4 minutes over 1. We put minutes on the bottom. We put seconds on top because we know that there's a connection between seconds and minutes. We know there's 60 seconds for every 1 minute. The minutes cancel out. We get seconds, and we get 240 seconds. 1 times 1 on the bottom, which just gives me 1 as a denominator, doesn't really help or hurt me. You can put it here, but ultimately when you divide by 1, you're just going to get the same number that was on top. So I have 240 seconds plus the 7 seconds that I was adding from up there. So I'm really talking about 240 seconds total. Okay. Same way we're going to do this one, except that we're going to go to ounces. I already have a piece of that, but now I need to take gallons to ounces. I can't go straight from gallons to ounces, so I have to go from gallons to quarts to pints to cups to ounces. So this one is probably the longest one we've done. And if you see this, like this is how many fractions you, whoops. This is how many fractions you should have ultimately at the end. Like here you had 1, 2, because we're just going from the beginning to the end. But if you have any in between, those are added fractions there. So 2 gallons, we're going to put that over 1. So that's my first fraction there. Now we're going to put gallons on the bottom because we want it to cancel out, quarts on top. Then we're going to put quarts on the bottom, pints on top, because we want quarts to cancel out. Then we want pints on the bottom, cups on top, and then we want cups on the bottom, ounces on top. So if we look at this, gallons cancels out with gallons, quarts cancels out with quarts, pints cancels out with pints, and cups cancels out with cups, leaving us with ounces, which is what we wanted. Now I need to go back and put all my numbers in. So there's 4 quarts in 1 gallon. There's 2 pints in 1 quart. There's 2 cups in 1 pint. And there's 8 ounces in 1 cup. So if we multiply straight across now, we have just 1s on the bottom, so we're going to end up with a 1 on the bottom. But on top, we get 2 times 4 times 2 times 2 times 8, which ends up giving us 256, I believe. Working off of memory from my key. 256, yep. And that just simplifies to 256. but we had the 5 ounces to add to it. So 256 plus 5 is really 261 ounces. All right, changing 15 feet to yards. We have a connection between feet and yards. We know that there's 3 feet in 1 yard. So we're going to do this the same way. We're going to write 15 feet over 1. We're going to put feet on the bottom, yards on top. 3 feet to 1 yard. Our feet cancel out. We multiply straight across. We get 15 over 3. And 15 divided by 3 gives us 5. So changing 15 feet to yards, we get 5 yards. Now, a little bit different. What is 91 inches expressed in feet and inches? We're kind of going backwards. So we need to, this one really, it goes in this section, but it's another way of us talking about the remainder. Really, we need to take this and we need to divide it by the conversion between inches and feet. So we know that there's 12 inches in every 1 foot. So in order to get this into feet and inches, we're going to divide 91 by 12. So when we do this, because see, the rest of them we were taking to smaller units, but when we want to go to a bigger unit, we want to divide by that, but we're going to end up getting a decimal. And that decimal, I'll give you a second way to do it in class, but this is my first way. So 12 times 7 gets us 84. I subtract 84 from 91 and I get 7, and that's a remainder. So I can write this 7 and 7 over 12, which really means that I have 7 feet, and then I have 7 inches left over of that next foot, because you have to remember, if we got to 12, that meant we would have another foot. So I really have 7 feet, 7 inches. All right. So if we're adding 5 years, 7 months, and 3 years, 11 months. Now, we can't do this because we would have to carry, or if we're subtracting, we would have to regroup, okay? Because look, if you just do this straight like a addition problem, you get 8 and you get 18 months. Well, you know that there's not 18 months in a year. So essentially, there's 2 ways you can do it. If you've done it this way, you can knock that back down to, like, you can basically take 12 away from it. And when you take 12 away from that month, you're going to add 1 to the year. Because if you take 12 months away, you're really adding 1 year. So it's really 9 years, 6 months. Okay? But now I'm going to give you the other way using what we have done today. Okay, so we're going to do it the same way we did the top ones from this page. For the 5 years, I put that over 1. I multiply by years on bottom, months on top. There's 12 months in every 1 year. The years cancel out, and I end up with 60 months. So this one is really 60 months plus 7 months, because I already had this 7 here, which is a total of 67 months. I've gotten rid of my years. Now for this one, I have 3 years, put it over 1, multiply it by that 12 months over 1 year, because again, I want my years to cancel out, and I get 36. So I have 36 plus 11, that was already there, and that's 47 months. And now I'm adding them. So I get 4, carry the 1, I get 114 months. They did not specify if they wanted it in months and years, or in months or years or whatever, or decimal, so we can just leave it just like that. All right, I'll do the next one and you can check your work with me. All right, so I've gotten 245 inches for the 20 feet 5 inches. I got 67 inches for 5 feet 7 inches. I'm going to add them up and I'm going to get 2, carry the 1, 11, carry the 1, 312 inches total. And again, I can leave it like that. Now, for the ones that are subtraction, we're going to run into a very similar problem, but instead of regrouping, we would have had to regroup, regroup from the other column. That poses a problem because you see here, you cannot take 9 away from 7, but it's not as, there's different units. Like for every pound you take away, you're not getting 1 ounce, you're getting 16 ounces. So we want to turn everything into the smaller unit. So if we come down here, we know the connection between pounds and ounces. Pounds cancel out. We end up with 64 ounces for the top. So 64 plus 7, because we already had 7 there, is 71 ounces total. Now this second one is going to be 2 pounds times the same conversion factor. So the nice thing about these is it's the same conversion factor. Pounds cancel out. We get 32 ounces. So we get 32 plus 9, which is 41 ounces. And this time we are subtracting, and we get 30 ounces. All right, I'll do the next one, and then you can check your work. All right, so you see right off the bat, the problem with this one is that you have nothing here. You don't actually have the second piece in the first one. So if you have just 2 hours, you actually have 2 hours and 0 minutes. So you can write that in like a placeholder. It's a very helpful placeholder in this case. So now we want to take hours to minutes, and I'll let you do that. All right, so I got 120. I add none, and I have 120 minutes. And then I have 60 plus 2, which is 62 minutes. And I want to subtract, which I end up getting 58 minutes as my answer. All right, if you have any questions, please let me know. Please complete the completed assignment after this, and I will see you soon.